Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we are. We are going to start in just 30 seconds.
Thank you, Guille. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I was actually talking to you on mute. I was remuted. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this first Reignite webinar. I'm Lisa Nedam. I work within our IBM team in corporate social responsibility, and I have the pleasure to host today's webinar. And the speaker that I'm welcoming today is Guillermo Miranda. He leads our CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility Division within IBM. And I'm thrilled to have him for this first webinar because he's actually the initiator, the creator of the Reignite initiative. And so this is a perfect way of kicking off our first Reignite webinar. Guillermo has been working with IBM for many years prior to being the head of our corporate social responsibility division. He spent many years in HR, having multiple roles in IBM, but also outside of IBM. And so he seemed to be the perfect candidate to be able to share some insights about career planning with you all. Guillermo is from Peru, but he's a true citizen of the world in the true sense of the word, because he lived in South America, but also in Europe and Africa, and now in the US since a few years. And when I was thinking about how to describe Guillermo, and if I had to really just pick one word, I guess for me it would be he's a transformer. So he takes things and he brings them to the next stage, he transforms them. And so when I was thinking about this concept of transformation, which is so relevant to career planning and the way you go through your career journey, I came across two quotes that I thought resonated a lot with me when thinking about Guille. The first one is from an American author called Michael Hyatt. And it says, "Don't fear failure. Fear being in the exact same place next year as you are today." And to me, this is really representative of Guille, because from the 2 years I've been working with him, what strikes me is his courage and his willingness to take risks and to really change, transform things. And I'm sure you're gonna get some example of that when you talk to him. But there's also another quote that I think complements that fearlessness. And that is a quote from the famous American philosopher and poet Emerson. And that says, "If you want to be great and successful, choose people who are great and successful and walk side by side with them." And so to me, that's what Guille does. He doesn't transform on its own as a one-man show. He's doing it by empowering others and creating a team and an ecosystem around him who are passionate to work with him and transform with him. And so to me, this is really what differentiates him as a leader, and I think also what makes him the perfect speaker for today's session. And so without further ado, I'd like to pass it on to Guille. Thank you, Guille. Over to you.
Hey, thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much, everybody attending. And yes, the good news is this is being taped, so I can replay to my mother so she can get the emotion of this presentation. So guys, thank you for coming. And let's just have a quick view of what is our intention today. So we are going to do a little warming up. I will share some personal details of what I did in life so far. And then the core of the conversation will be about 3 common myths in career planning that are not true, and how you play around, how you understand what is reality, and then how you have a better idea of how to go and move forward about your career, your professional goals. After those 3, we are going to have some very specific next steps, because many people have webinars, but I don't want you to walk away from the webinar and say, "Oh, that was good. Thank you. Bye. I forgot." No, let me give you some quick tips of what you can do after the webinar and have this conversation and action forward. And then we will have time for a quick Q&A with Lisa. Okay, so let's move forward, and let me start with some juicy details. Yes, this is me. You can see on the left, I was 3 years old, and I decided that I will go to the office with my father. That's the way that I decided to dress. The next picture is of my high school graduation. This is my mother and my best friend, Raul. I was 16. The next picture is my very first public speech in a forum with the American Chamber of Commerce back in Lima. I was 24, probably. And the glasses were a recommendation to look a little older. So I really didn't need glasses, but because they say wear glasses. So the glasses were just a frame, really no measure on the glasses. The next one is a picture in Kenya. That's after the rhino charge. This is a day that we finished running in the savannah. And that was probably 5 years ago. Yeah. And it's one of these moments that you always treasure in your mind when you say, well, I was able to combine all these things that I really appreciate in life. And the last one on the right-hand side is just an interview early this year in Chile with CNN about a presentation on corporate purpose. So, as I said, yes, I am a lawyer. I went to law school like my father, like my grandfather. In my family, from the father's side, there are basically two options. You are either a lawyer or you are a mining engineer. In Peru, mining is a big industry. So in my family, you are a lawyer or you are a mining engineer. And I choose lawyer. So here I am. I've been trying to redeem myself for 25 years after graduating from law. And the reality is that I really practiced law only for a couple of years after graduation. I have lived in 4 different continents. I also have lived in 10 different cities. So Americas, Europe, Africa, Asia, Lima, Caracas, Madrid, San Sebastián, Miami, New York, Vienna, Nairobi, Dubai, Washington. And I have worked so far for 5 companies, a law firm in Peru, the tax authority in Peru, the National Television Network in Peru, the Inter-American Development Bank, and then IBM. I learned a lot in all these different contexts, but this is just to give you a sense that you have to be flexible somehow, or you choose to be flexible. There is people that choose different career paths. I tried to play tennis. I confess that I tried to play tennis. I really practiced hard, but I was not successful. It's a lot of hours of tennis, and yeah, was okay. I played some of the tournaments back in my country in Peru, semi-professional, but no, it was not my call, probably. Didn't work. And then one day in high school, the trainer of track and field approached me and said, hey, you don't want to run? And then I said, no, I play tennis. Yes, I know you play tennis, but why you don't try to run? I am looking for mid-distance runners. Okay, let's give it a try. So that year, I started to run when I was 15, yes, 800 meters. The next year, I made it to be the national champion of 800 meters. For the people that knows a little about track and field, 159.2, and that was the national championship record in Peru when I was 17. And then I went to university and never did a professional career, and Sebastian Coe already was running 141, so there was no point. And the other thing that I discovered later in life was the pleasure of off-road running, 4x4 in the middle of the savannah. And that was a discovery in Kenya, when we lived in Kenya. And it was a great way to be in contact with the nature. But this specific competition is not about speed. It's about how to get from one point to the other in the shortest distance. And imagine that in the middle of the African savanna. And then in each car, you have 4 people, the driver, the navigator, and 2 runners. And the role of the runners is to go actually ahead of the car to discover what is coming and to plan the trajectory of the car, how we are going to pass through. And as you can imagine, I was not a driver. I am not necessarily a good navigator, so I was one of the runners. We were ahead. The most famous moment that I remember is where we were running in the open savanna. My other partner runner starts to make signs, and then I go to the left and I discover that there was a little rhino a few meters from where we are. So we very quietly come back and took a different route. I am also a husband, a father. I try to be a good mentor, and I am an amateur coach with my son Rodrigo to play tennis. So let's see if the story repeats in a different way. Actually, he's very good because he's left-handed, and that's a little trick for tennis players. So this is who am I. Yeah, it's interesting, you can find, but we are not here to talk about me. I just wanted to give you some background so you understand circumstances of how I will try to give you some ideas of what is career planning. So let's jump into the topic. And let's be sure that WebEx works. So the first question, the first myth is, do I need a very detailed plan to be successful in my professional life? Because many people say, yes, you have to have a plan. That's important. How rigid or how flexible is that plan? How do I handle the setbacks? What do I choose when there are conflicting options? So let me tell you from my personal experience and also from my experience as a people person, a human resources person in many years, in many settings, in many continents, that the perfect career planning doesn't exist. So let's get it up front. Perfect career planning doesn't exist. This notion that I can plot every single step into the managing director position, chairman of the board, dean of the faculty, or head research Nobel Prize winner is not real. The plans, a very good finance guy in IBM told me once, look, the plans are guidance. The plans are here to exceed or underestimate, but exactly to the plan is very difficult to handle. So yes, we need a plan, but you should not be constrained by the plan. Okay? The plan is a reference. The plan is a framework to execute things. But sticking to the plan is not the most important thing. You need to learn how to be flexible when it's needed, how to stand your ground when also is needed, and how to be opportunistic, how to be pragmatic. So let me give you a very concrete example from, in this case, again, my own life. So I was a lawyer back in Peru. At that point, I graduated, and my father was the Attorney General in Peru. And being the son of the Attorney General, I was always the son of Dr. Miranda. And I said, no, that's not the life that I want. And by the way, I'm not so sure that I want to be a lawyer all my life. So I said, let's do an MBA. Let's get an MBA, and then the law degree with an MBA, and I can go into investment banking. That was my logic. And I put all my savings together. I took a plane and I went to Spain. And I did my MBA in Deusto in San Sebastian. And that was fantastic. And then in the summer vacation of my MBA, it was a 2-year MBA, face-to-face, I went to New York. And through some connections, I managed to get an internship in a law firm that was fully dedicated to investment banking. And being set in New York, everything was new for me. Everything was fascinating until I started to work as an intern. And then I discovered that the life of an investment banker, beyond all these very nice images on the movies, private jets, fancy dinners, amazing hotels, is a very tough one because you really work 24/7. There is no space to something else. I experienced and I saw firsthand what it means to be an investment banker in New York. And after 3-4 weeks, I was clear. I will not do that. This is not my calling in life. I don't think that I can be at this kind of a scenario. So I came back to Spain after this experience, say, okay, what do I do? And at that point, the Banco Bilbao Vizcaya, BBVA, started to buy banks in Latin America. That was the expansion of the Spanish companies. And they offered me a job to be part of their business development team based in Spain. That was perfect. I was in Deusto, which is the traditional university that fits Banco Bilbao Vizcaya, and everything was set. And then I have to go to a wedding of one of the colleagues that was in the MBA. And that wedding was in Paris, by the way. So we took the train with a student budget, 4th class, not 3rd class, 4th class, almost with the luggage. We got into the wedding, was a magnificent wedding, etc. And the next morning I said, at least I'm going to go to the museums. That was my first time in Paris. So I woke up in the morning and start walking into the area of the museums, and I bumped into a former professor from my university in Peru. And of course, you are surprised when you find somebody that knows you in Paris. I heard, Guillermo, who knows me here? And we have breakfast together. And basically, what he said is, no, you are not going to work for a Spanish bank. I need you back in Peru. I'm now the head of the tax authority in Peru, and I am in charge of doing a big transformation. And I need a leader of human resources. And I said, oh, I don't know human resources. I am a lawyer. I did an MBA. I said, don't worry. You will find what you need. I need somebody that I can trust because we need to do a big transformation here. And I need somebody that can really be my right hand. So I came back to San Sebastian and I switched plans again. And I finished back in Peru. And I was the head of the tax agency in Peru at 26. And we did a big transformation. Those were really 2 fantastic years of my life. I learned a lot. But you can see, you are planning and not things are happening the way that you are planning. Okay? Another big example is when you have setbacks. So when there is a setback, what do you say? Well, how do I react? I was planning to do these things. I have all these very clear things in my life directed, and now somebody else is changing the plans. And in many cases, the most frequent way that it happens is when your employment is terminated. So yes, I have experienced that twice in my life, when one afternoon your boss calls you to the office and say, hey, Guillermo, we have made an executive decision and we are not going to take your services anymore. In some cases, this is a political decision. In some cases, it's something else. But that's it. Your planning is finished, gone. And you have to recalibrate everything from the beginning. And that's the piece where you need to learn to be flexible, and you need to learn to take all the things back into the planning stage and say, okay, let's reconfigure the route. Let's think about, okay, these were the things that I was moving forward, but also now there is a change of plan, that is completely out of my control. Okay? And usually when you pass through this experience of employment termination, there is different ways to react. And there is a traditional outplacement, rebound thing. The reality is that this is really hard. Don't think and don't make poetical. It's hard. It's tough because you were in a trajectory and somebody else comes and stops you and says, okay, bye. You are no longer allowed in this highway. Go to the secondary roads. And by the way, leave the car here because this belongs to the company. That literally happened to me on one employment termination. Say, and by the way, leave your car keys here because that's the company car. So that's it. You are walking the next afternoon out there. And there is no perfect formula. And everybody has different strengths and your different personality. In my case, happily, if you want, one of these employment terminations led to finding IBM as an option. And I have to say that in my personal case, IBM changed many things that I have in my life because it's a company, and there are many companies that help you to understand and to learn and to open up to the world. In my wildest dreams, I will not say that I will live in 4 continents and I have traveled all over the world because I work for a company like IBM. And if you see the opportunity side, as soon as you start seeing the opportunity side, that's the way when you revamp. That's the way that you think, okay, yes, they threw me out of the highway. Now I'm in a secondary road, but maybe in this secondary road, I can find a different way to get to the place that I wanted. I can find that the highway is not the only way. There are, by the way, other highways, but also there are other means to get to the place that you want. Maybe it's better to take a plane. While you were driving, you can take a plane. It's going to be faster. You can do different things. So handling setbacks is important because from perceived failure, you can revamp and you can nurture or cultivate a different muscle in your set of skills. The muscle of being humble, the muscle of being a loser in the perception of a bigger audience, and the muscle to rebound. And probably that's the most important muscle because in life, things are not going to be in a single trajectory. That's the reality. I think that in our everyday life, it happens. I have to get to a meeting, and I was planning to get out of the airport, take the Uber, arrive on time, take the metro, and walk into the meeting. Well, many times in our life, you get out of the airport, and there is a delay in customs, there is no taxi, you take the Uber, and when you arrive 5 minutes late, you realize, oh, no worries, the meeting has been postponed. Okay, things change. The other piece that I wanted to discuss a little on career planning is how do you make a choice between conflicting options? How do you decide this is good, this is not so good, or this is a different option? The first thing is there is not right or wrong. Okay? There are different ways to get to different goals. So when you are in front of a decision, trying to portray this decision between the right decision and the wrong decision is not good. It's just going to deepen your concern and deepen your confusion. You always have to think about, there are different alternatives. There are different scenarios. And this is the scenario A, this is the scenario B, this is the scenario C, and let's see what is better and what is not. Again, in my personal experience, I try to think about the options as different sets of opportunities. And you make choices. When I was early in university, there was an opportunity to do the final year of the law school abroad. And two people were offered that option. I was one of those. I choose to stay for personal reasons. I don't know. You are 22 and you really don't know, but it was alternative career paths. The person that went and did their career abroad actually has a very nice life, was never a lawyer, actually was a disaster because it went to Europe and never graduated as a lawyer, but discovered that what he really wanted to do was to be a chef. So this person now is a very successful chef that the open up of the experiences open a different door. So you don't have to think when you have apparently conflicting options again, this is right and this is wrong. No, these are different scenarios that will lead to different outcomes. And then you have to portray yourself. How do you see yourself out of the different outcomes? How you see yourself being in one route or the other. Okay? So there is no perfect career planning. There is no option to be rigid. You have to be flexible. You have to learn from your setbacks and from your failures. That's a very important muscle and set of skills that you need to learn in life. And never put conflicting options as right or wrong. You have to see that these are alternative paths to move forward. I think now we are going to do a little pooling to make this somehow entertaining. So Lisa, back to you.
Thank you. Indeed, after everything that you heard from Guille, we'd like to ask you a question. So I'm going to paste in the chat the link to a survey. If you click on the link, you get to answer a question, and in a second, I'm going to be able to show the results of the poll. The question is, do you have a solid and well thought career plan? So think about everything that Guille just told us about and how you would describe whether or not you have a solid career plan today. And in a second, we'll show the results. So if you follow the link and answer the question, that would be great. I just posted it in the chat to everyone.
Okay, the survey gizmo.
Okay, I see the first response is coming in as I'm refreshing the screen. I'm just going to give it a little bit longer because we have many participants today on the webinar, over 360. So I'll give it a few more seconds before we show the results.
Yeah, 428 actually so far.
It's great indeed.
So maybe you just put again the link because it may go up into the chat.
Yes, let me do that indeed, because we're very talkative on the chat today. So here it is
in
again.
Many different languages.
Indeed, it's very international.
By the way, at some point I thought that I will speak French. I will say, oh yes, I speak Spanish, I speak German, I speak Portuguese, and I say I speak French. And we were in our honeymoon with my wife, Talia, in Paris. First breakfast there, and I tried to order something in French. And the waiter very nicely smiled to me and said, let's try in English. Don't worry, let's try in English. So that was the end of my French speaking trying and pretending in front of my wife.
Even for real citizens of the world like yourself, Guille.
Yeah, Parisians waiters are something else.
Indeed. Okay, team. So I'm going to refresh one last time, and I'm going to share the screen to be able to share the results with you all. If I could get the rights to share the screen, that would be great. Can you see it now? A last refresh. So as you can see, it's actually quite balanced because we have almost over a quarter of people who say, absolutely, I have a very good plan. Then we have another 33% that say, somehow, yes. So some kind of a plan. And then we have the exact same portion again saying, no, but I always wanted to have one. And then we have smaller percentages that do not today necessarily have a plan. So it's interesting because I think, as you said, Guy, it's not so much about whether you have a plan or not having a plan, but being flexible with it, right? As you said, it's always nice to know, have an idea of where you're going, but then you adapt along the way. So it's really interesting to see that it's actually quite balanced in the responses, and hopefully what you shared with the team gives them now a good idea on how to be flexible and adjust their plan if needed.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Tanya, if you give me control back, I can continue to share. Okay, there we go. So the next myth that we want to talk about is personal life versus professional goals. I have to always put my professional goals ahead in order to have a successful career or not. And what I said is not. I think that the myth that in order to be successful, you have always to put professional goals ahead of your personal life or personal goals is not correct. It doesn't work that way. And there is a very, very simple formula here. And I can tell you this from my human resources, people management experience. When you make sacrifices on your personal life, or you postpone some personal life, very clear inclinations or goals in order to advance your career, you are not fulfilling yourself in a complete form, and you will somehow regret that. There are trade-offs, of course, there are trade-offs, but if you always and consistently put professional goals over your personal life, you are going to find that you are going to be unhappy, you are going to be missing something. So human beings, we are animals of complete context. You cannot have a shiny aspect on your life and everything else is a disaster. It doesn't work that way. You have to complement things. And here I choose to put a picture of Kenya. This is the Mount Kenya at the very end, an area in the northwest of Kenya. And this is the farm of a very good friend that used to have a big career in IBM. She was an executive in IBM, and after accomplishing some very important things, she said, no, I cannot move to London. I cannot be the head of this function for the continent. I want to go into a different path. And she managed to combine a role in a corporate world as a coach and as a mentor, instead of as a line manager, and have her dream of setting up a farm in Kenya. And this balance makes sense when you have clarity on how you identify what are your cornerstones. So this is the key piece. Identifying your cornerstones. What are your foundational beliefs? What are the foundational things that inspire you and engage you in life? Is the first step to identify how to manage these different options. Okay? So identify your foundational beliefs, identify your cornerstones. And then the best thing to do next is to start with a story. You visualize how am I going to balance these different things in a story that, in a way, is the story of your life? Because life is not just work, life is not just pleasure, life is not just the personal side. Life is how we balance all these aspects of our personal stories. So if you are able to plot and have a story, identifying your cornerstones, design a character, do set up an environment, and define a plot. Try this several times, iterate, and you will feel comfortable with an outcome. And always be ready for plan B. When you have two options, I will go into a corporate life or I will go into an academia life. Many of us decision to make out of university or starting to work. What are the 2 or 3 options that I have? How do I make decisions? How do I manage these personal life goals with my with my professional objectives? Okay? So imagining and envisioning a plot, do iterations of how this is going to play out, will help you to better understand how you will react and how comfortable you will feel in the different settings. And this is something that in IBM we learn based on a methodology that is called design thinking. In design thinking, you basically put yourselves on the shoes of the user and you start plotting different scenarios. You start plotting what we call user journeys. And in order to identify a user journey, you need to be able to put all the elements that are inspiring and driving the actions of that user. So if for a moment you are able to put yourself outside of the scenario and create these stories, for some of us, this is going to be a graphical thing. For some of us, this is going to be writing about the story. For some of us, this is going to be an Excel file with different options. Choose whatever feels you comfortable. And in that environment, create a plot. This is the story. This is how it may play. And iterate. The most important ingredient in design thinking is to ask questions and to get feedback. So the other thing that is important when you are making decisions on personal life, professional goals, designing a scenario, is to ask people what it is to be in these characters. What is to be a professor in a university? How is your everyday experience? Capture that feedback. What it is to be a professional in a corporate environment, in a company, in a global company with operations all over the globe. What it means to be a public service employee, work in the public sector with very specific rules. What it is to be a freelancer, be very creative, work in a design studio, but don't imagine those things. Go to the people that is living that life and ask the questions. Because many of these things are created out of our own imagination. And believing or not, the influence of the media, the influence of what we portray as the movie characters may distort what is the reality. So I have a very important personal story. When I made a decision to leave IBM, I am a boomerang. I left IBM and they come back. But when I made a decision to leave IBM and become the head of HR of a large organization in Latin America, I didn't ask these questions. I just imagined myself and created a plot without asking for feedback. And in my own imagination, that was the perfect move. That's exactly what I was waiting in life to happen. And on the surface, that was absolutely perfect. It checked yes, 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 in many aspects, personal, professional, aspirations, income growth, everything was check, check, check. But I didn't take the time to really ask deeply. And when I have 2 or 3 easy explorations, I override the feedback. When I do the playback of those conversations, I override the feedback that was not in favor of my already idea of this is ideal. So don't make that mistake. Ask for the feedback, create the stories, balance out, and iterate many times until you feel comfortable. And you feel comfortable also to go into plan B, because not necessarily will happen exactly as you plan. Huh? The design thinking methodology is a fantastic framework to put in perspective what is personal life and what are personal goals and how to balance. And you are the protagonist. You are the person that will drive that to the future. Okay, so let's do a little survey now. Lisa, back to you.
Yes, and Guia, you mentioned during this section that there may be different ways of writing or telling your story, envisioning it. What if we were able to sing it? So the survey is to the participants, everything that Guia just told you about balancing out professional and personal life. Do you have any songs that come to your mind that reflect this? Sometimes challenge, but also huge opportunity in life. So if you want to write down a song title in the chat, I'm going to try and pick a few and then share with a wider team. So take a minute to do that. And obviously, we have participants from all over the world, so it can be songs from all countries that just resonate with you in terms of that topic of balancing out your professional life and your personal life. While participants put their answers in the chat, maybe Guille, you want to share with us a song that resonates with you, or maybe that has inspired you on that topic.
So there are many songs. Sometimes it's easy to pick a specific time frame or a specific type. I love the rock from the 80s. And Bon Jovi, which is in the border of that, is my favorite band in that sense. So many songs from Bon Jovi remind me on how you have to drive things to reinvent yourself. Go. And just the melody sometimes, not necessarily the letter, but just the melody is good enough to have a fantastic inspiration. So there is one song in particular, Have a Nice Day by Bon Jovi, that is my favorite to start the day. And yeah, let's have a nice day. That's the way to go. And I have to confess that I put the songs in my own webinars with my own team. So they are used to Bon Jovi.
We are. It's very energizing. And I see on the chat, we have many answers. So from the Beatles, a song, Here Comes the Sun. Or a song from Queen, We Are the Champions. We also have Won My Way, Rusted Root. Some are actually saying piano tunes is what's really inspiring them. And then Life is a Highway, a really good one too, in terms of seeing your life in front of you. So many inspirations that are being shared in the chat. Thank you. Some are even including YouTube links, which is great because then people can listen to it afterwards. Thank you so much. So moving on to the last section, because we're conscious of the time that is running away from us. Over to you, Guille.
Yes, thank you. So the third myth that we wanted to discuss today is related with the measure of success is linked to constant income growth. And here, probably there is no single answer. yes, of course, there is a level of safety income, and we all aspire to that. There is a level of safety income that is important. Any professional career jobs are taking us to this level of safety income to have the things that you need beyond survival. And that is important, of course. So the moment that you cross this level of safety income, and that will take, in some cases, just work in very different things. But the moment that you cross that, then the reality is that there are different sectors, there are different industries, there are different occupations, and just the choice of something will lead to a different economic output if you want. If you choose the education sector and academia, probably you are not going to be able to buy a private yacht and take vacations in the Maldives. And the economics of a sector. If you want to be in an NGO space, probably there is a lot of the salary with satisfaction and not the salary that comes with dollars. But once you have this balance between I have the safety income, then I need to lead with the idea that I am choosing a sector, I am choosing an occupation, and I'm going to grow within that with something that is beyond income. Success is not defined by the size of your wallet. Success is defined by the level of your satisfaction and the level of happiness that you spread around you. If you are a highly paid, multimillionaire, sad person, first, you are going to be frustrated. And second, you are going to spread a lot of unhappiness around you. There is no solution. So I think that personal satisfaction is important. And here, probably the most important thing is how you know yourself. How do you react better to one thing or to the other, and how you plan ahead. And don't make decisions. Probably the very practical tip here is don't make decisions based on income alone. Income is important, but don't move to the next job because they give you 10% more, 15% more, and then you are going to find yourself in a place that there is no career growth, there is no education, you are in a group that is toxic, and yes, you are making 15% more, but look all the prices that you are paying for that. Okay? So, very concrete, very clear, know yourself, balance, and be conscious on the sector and occupation that you have. Don't define career success by your annual pay. Define career success by your level of satisfaction and your ability to spread happiness around you in the personal side, in the professional side, in how you pay back to society for that level of success. And look, I am conscious of the time, so let's move to a couple of very concrete things that we wanted to discuss before we do a quick Q&A and settle for the day. So, look, you have attended probably many webinars, and this is one interesting or not one, but I think that it's important that you walk away with a few tips. So, here are my few tips to play back your own story in terms of career plan. The first one is find out what it is growth mindset. Growth mindset is a very good methodology, framework of thought, reference that helps you to understand how to translate the word into your own terms. So do a little research about growth mindset. Second thing, any career path requires constant reinvention, requires constant transformation. So lifelong learning should not be a poetic declaration, should be a reality. And think about the skills that you can acquire And there is always something else. You have to carve out some time to focus on yourself and to grow your career opportunities with the skills. So lifelong learning, skills, new abilities is very important to any choice that you do. Third thing, fail. We have to fail to learn. Fail, iterate, move forward. Inaction is far worse than failure. So fail, move, fail. In order to have a good career planning, in order to have a good career framework of reference, the roles of mentors, career sponsors, coach are very important. Do a little research on how a mentor can help you perspectives, how having a sponsor can pull you up into the organization wherever you are, how a coach can help you to create these different scenarios. And finally, more important, you have to have fun. Don't take this as the only solution in your life. Again, if you are beyond the safety income, I think that there is a moment that you can have a little of fun and put that component, because life is once and we have to live it with a smile, I believe. Okay? So take this with you, do a little research, and then maybe we can move to a couple of questions, Lisa, before we close for the day.
Thank you so much, Guille. So many great advices and stories that I'm sure have inspired all the participants of the call. So the participants, if you want to put some questions in the chat, feel free. Now is the time to ask. I've seen a few already, so I'm going to start by asking one, Guille. If someone wants to change area of expertise, shift in their careers, and want to move into an area where they don't have maybe a formal education or previous experience, what would be your recommendation to do that shift?
First, I think that in order to do shifts or career paths, it's important that you understand what it takes to make the shift, what it takes to become a different kind of professional or worker in the new environment. Talk to the people that is doing what you envision you can do. Talk to the people that has done the shift before and understand what it took to make that change in your career. As you can see, I was trained as a lawyer. I work as a lawyer 2-3 years, and then I make a shift. And what I learned is that asking is always the best way to get informed. So ask the people that is doing this new role that you envision, this new occupation that you envision, this career shift, and inform yourself. And you can get basically 2 outcomes. The first one is, oh, I was wrong. I have the wrong perception about this idea of moving and becoming somebody else. Now that I understand, I don't want to move. The second thing is, oh yes, there is a plot. Somebody else did it before me. These were the steps, and this is the way that it worked for this person and in this environment. And then the other that is not always possible, but do a little try out, do a little informal project, do a stretch assignment in this new area, or do a completely different thing from your current work and volunteer somehow in this area and try out. Try out. The way to learn, understand something is when you put your hands into the matter.
Thank you so much, Guillaume. Another question is, and that may be the last one, but to kind of summarize and bring it all together, if you reflect back so far on your career, what would you say was your best decision? And what was, not saying the worst, but the least good decision that you made and that you would do differently today?
Yeah, look, probably the best decision that I made was to come back to the corporate world where I was thriving. And it came very clearly after working in the World Bank group. One night after 2 years, I came back home after a long day. And my wife, that knows me very well, told me something straight in my face. She said, look, Guillermo, I married a happy IBMer, and now I am living with a frustrated politician. Do something about it. And that day, I decided that, okay, that experiment of development bank was good in theory, but was not exactly what motivated myself and drove me in life. So I started to do my way back into corporate, and I was lucky enough to have an opportunity to come back to IBM. That was probably the best decision and advice that I got. And the worst one probably was when I decided that I will play the violin because I have a cousin that was part of the National Philharmonic, and I thought that it comes in the genes. No, that was a complete disaster. I wasted time, and I am not good at all in music. I am a good listener, but no, that was not good. Trying the violin, doing an event didn't work. But well, at least I learned from my failure.
And actually, what you're just saying is the example of a growth mindset, right? It's trying things that you may not be good at, but it's okay because you're learning and you're not just want to go for things you know you're going to be good at, you know you have talent for. It's not a fixed status, it's not a fixed mindset. You keep growing. So thank you so much, Guy. And in that spirit, and to conclude the webinar, for you all to keep growing and keep learning, as Guy said, we obviously encourage you to work on your skills, on your experiences, on your network. And one way of doing that is to connect to the Skills Build Reignite platform. Some of you I saw in the chat are already part of our Skills Build program. So keep learning. Tell us what you need in terms of content, and you're our inspiration for creating those additional learning paths and content. So thank you all for participating today. Hopefully this was helpful for you. I see many comments in the chat that it's been a great inspiration. A lot of thank yous to you, Guy. So thank you all so much, and see you at the next webinar. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, participants.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday. Bye.
Bye.